Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio and ESPN News. 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM dial nearest you, plus ESPN Radio and Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Wendy's, proud sponsor of the 2019 John R. Wooden Player of the Year. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. We know what time it is. We're getting some basketball stuff later, pro basketball that is, football stuff later. I think people are bloviating about the Cleveland Browns a little bit too much. I don't know what the hell is wrong with my New York Yankees. The hell you lose to the worst, arguably the worst team in baseball, 2 out of 3. What's up with that? Michael Kay, afternoon drive time host, plus calling Yankee games for the Yes Networks. He'll be on with us live at the top of hour number 2 of the Stephen A. Smith Show right here on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. We'll talk to him about all things baseball, by the way, because he knows all things baseball. We'll talk to him about that, but before I get into any of that, we know where we have to lead. The Duke Blue Devils are going home. The Duke Blue Devils will not advance to the Final Four in Minneapolis next week, courtesy of a 68-67 loss to Michigan State. Tom Izzo's Michigan State Spartans. The Duke Blue Devils are going home. They will not advance to the Final Four. And before I get into Duke, I want to give love to this cat, Cassius Winston. Excuse me. This kid, Cassius Winston, 20 points, 9 of 23 shooting. Wasn't that impressive in that regard. But his decision making, excuse me, this is what happens when you eat a burger before you come to work. Cassius Winston, 1 turnover in 40 minutes. 1. Magic Johnson, I got to give him credit. Because even though he's the president of the basketball operations for the Los Angeles Lakers, who now are clearly not having the most stellar season in the world, he is the former Michigan State Spartan. He is the one that guided them to a national championship back in 1980. He is in 1979, 1980. He is somebody that showed up, still supports the program tremendously, and showed up and was at the regional final yesterday afternoon. This is the individual, Magic Johnson, we're talking about here, that met with this team Saturday during practice. He talked to them about not turning the ball over. He talked to them about pushing the pace. He talked to them about making sure you get your share of rebounds, which they did, particularly in the first half. This is what Michigan State was doing, crashing the offensive boards, which is why they ended up with 11 for the game. This is the same Michigan State squad that played lights. I got a big-time 3 near the end from Kenny Goins to seal the deal. Xavier Tillman finished with 19 points and 8 of 12 shooting, but the real job he did was in trying to defend Zion Williamson. Michigan State, at the end of the day, shot 45% in the second half, shot 50% from three-point range in the second half after shooting just 18% in the first half. Only got to the free throw line 3 times and made 2 of them. Duke Blue Devils were an entirely different story. Shot 50% from the field in the second half, but only 4 of 11 from three-point range in the half and 7 of 21 for the game. They missed 4 of their 9 free throws. In the last waning minutes, R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson shot like 52% from the free throw line. Now, we can throw out those numbers, and I'm just throwing out there to just make sure the analytic folks are pleased. Or those who are watching aesthetically, you just want to know those stats, that's fine. Let me break this down for you in Stephen A. parlance. Let me break this down for you in a way that, as my man Joe Madison on Urban View Radio said, let me give it to you where the goats can get it. Let me try that. Let me tell you something right now. Zion Williamson is a man. He's a man. Finished with 24 and 14. Played 37 of the 40 minutes. I don't give a damn about the 5 turnovers. That happens. Zion Williamson, when he had the ball in his hands for the most part in the second half, was absolutely positively unstoppable. He was a man amongst boys. Tillman tried. He really, really did. But what are you supposed to do with a dude that's 6'7", 280 pounds, with a 45-plus inch vertical leap? Zion Williamson is something special. And if he never, and if this, before this NCAA tournament, if you doubted whether or not he was the #1 overall draft pick, there is no doubt any longer. It is what it is. It's a wrap. He's that special. He's that special. I got to say this. Nobody else on Duke is. I'm going to say it right now. Nobody else on Duke is. And oh, by the way, yesterday, Coach K wasn't that special. We love Coach K now. The best in the business. Hall of Famer. Elite in his profession. No doubt. Yesterday was not a shining moment for him. It was not a shining moment for him. Tom Izzo reminded you why he's one of the great coaches in the game. It's the reason that Michigan State is going to its 10th Final Four. Tom Izzo can coach. Tom Izzo can coach. You look at this kid Langford, he ain't there. Nick Ward ain't himself. Even though he's back, not the same dude he was before he got injured early in the season. But somehow, some way, with Cassius Winston, with Aaron Henry, with Matt McQuaid, which, by the way, that was a beautiful move on him. He sat up there like Jordan, like, what do you want me to do? I mean, twisting his body in midair. That brother got up, and nice play on his part. Tillman and Goins. Look, you got to give credit where credit is due. You got 5 guys that showed up. Nick Ward only played 13 minutes. It wasn't about him. You look at these boys and the way they played. Winston played 40 minutes. Henry, the same guy that Tom Izzo yelled at. The same guy that caused national headlines because, my God, Tom Izzo raised his voice and looked fiery in the face of one of his players. And, oh, I wouldn't coach like that. Oh, please. He played the boy 38 minutes. He didn't bench him. He demanded of him and then put him in the game and let him play. McQuaid played 38 minutes. Tillman played 29. Goins played 38 minutes. Izzo only went 7 deep. And one dude and Gabe Brown had 3 minutes and Nick Ward had 13. So he really went with 5 when you really think about it. Even though Duke out-rebounded them 42-31 overall, Michigan State set the tone, crashing the boards in the first half. And even though you couldn't stop Zion Williamson, what did you do? You did everything you could to get the ball out of his hands. R.J. Barrett hit 1 big 3, missed another, had a chance to tie the game with free throws, blew that opportunity, missed the front end, and then made the back one by mistake. And the reason I sit up there and I say this, and somebody's got to say it, because damn it, these are college kids and we try to be nice, but let's just call it what it is, please. I'm going to tell you why I look at Coach K and I look at this loss. Ladies and gentlemen, R.J. Barrett did shoot 7 of 17 from the field. He did finish with 21 points for the game. I'd like to see him be able to use his right hand. The fact that you know he's not makes him somewhat predictable to defend. And in the waiting moments, you can't just go by his numbers. You got to go by what he produces when it really counts. Because the reality of the situation is that he's not ambidextrous. He doesn't have that kind of versatility as a point guard. And I look at R.J. I'm sorry, not as a point guard, but as a player. And I just look at R.J. Barrett as a guy that's very good. But I don't look at him as great as of yet. Not saying he won't be, but not yet. Where I really lose it, where I really lose my disappointment, it's not with Trey Jones because he can't shoot. He only finished with 4 points. He didn't show up, 2 of 5 from the field. He was no threat after showing up in the Sweet 16 and playing lights out against Virginia Tech, suddenly he went back to form and couldn't buy a basket. Barely attempted any. But that's fine because he's primarily there for his defensive prowess. The person that's such a big, big disappointment to me, and has been a big disappointment all year long, is Cam Reddish. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, I think a legitimate argument could be made that Coach K might push him out of Duke, might never want to speak to him again. How in God's name are you jumping around with the team in the pregame huddle, and right before tip-off time, Coach K finds out you ain't available to play? What was that about? This is the Sweet 16. You're there for a national title. You are Cam Reddish. How in God's name are you not ready to go in the Sweet 16? I got a problem with that. I really, really got a problem with that. I don't understand it. I need an explanation because it doesn't make sense to me. How in the hell are you not ready? If you are Cam Reddish, where the hell were you? What happened? I demand to know an answer. I don't give a damn that it's college and that it's kids that we're talking about here. What the hell happened? That's what I want to know. How in God's name was Cam Reddish not ready to go against Virginia Tech? Evidently something went awry because he didn't start yesterday against Michigan State. He did not start. Why wasn't he starting? What happened? I want details. I want information. I want to know. I want to know the answer. You're 6'5", 6'6". You're supposed to have a sweet stroke, even though the damn thing looks good, but that hardly doesn't go in consistently enough. You're athletic. You can defend. You've hit big shots to win games. We've seen Cam Reddish do this before. What the hell is going on? I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what? 2 for 8 in 37 minutes? 2 for 8, 2 field goals? What happened to the big three? Zion Williamson had no help. Cam Reddish didn't show up. Somebody's got to say it. The man didn't show up. And these guys actually talk about getting drafted, and he's going to be a high pick. Listen, he's a big-time prospect. And I guess a few years down the road, he's going to be something special. I'm telling you right now, if Cam Reddish is smart, he'd stay in school. He'd make up for what we saw, this debacle that we just saw this year. He'd stay in school. Hopefully, Coach K will allow him to, rather than kick his behind out the door. How the hell are you not ready for the Sweet 16? You were jumping around in the huddle before the game. And then Coach K finds out you ain't ready to go tip-off time? Coach K had no idea, according to reports. No idea. Jay Williams, who started at Duke, was an All-American and a national champion, said so. Coach K had no idea. He also said that Cam Reddish would probably be in the G League. You got men in there playing for their livelihoods. Mortgages, children to feed, mortgages to pay. All it got time for somebody that don't have a motor? You don't have a motor playing 35 to 40 games in college. How the hell can I trust you to have a motor with 82 games in the NBA? Cam Reddish needs to stay in school. Period. I cannot believe that he wasn't ready to go. And I felt so bad for Zion Williamson because, ladies and gentlemen, be clear, he's playing all by himself. Damn near all by himself. Deloria actually played a good game, hit all 5 of his baskets, helped down low. R.J. Barrett did have 21 points, hit 7 of 17 shots, but when crunch time really, really mattered, he wasn't that dude. Okay, I guess you could say he wasn't playing alone. But I'm just saying, when I think about the expectations of Duke, and I look at how Zion Williamson played and what a man he has proven to be. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the hops, consistent. The effort, consistent. His prowess on the defensive side of the ball, consistent. He even hit a couple of threes. That was consistent. Get to the hole, finishing in the paint like a man. That was fit. I mean, all the things that he's been showing us all year long, it didn't dissipate. It didn't dwindle. It didn't diminish one iota in the postseason. Won the MVP for the ACC tournament. Was balling for Duke throughout this tournament. Zion Williamson is something special to behold. There is no debate. He is the #1 overall pick. Where would you prefer him to go? That's the question. Do you want him with the Knicks? Do you want him with LeBron and the Lakers? Where did you want him to go? That's the only thing to talk about. There is no debate. Zion Williamson is that special. He's that special. R.J. Barrett, he's a nice player. I just want to see him use his right hand more. But he's a nice player. He'll be a top 5 pick. He's a nice player. Cam Reddish, that boy better not come out the Duke. I mean, Cam Reddish was such a disappointment this year. You're strictly hiring him. If you draft him, you're grabbing him for potential. I'm talking about in terms of his level of productivity. It's such a disappointment. It really, really is. It's hard to put into words. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. I'm going to tell you something else, too. Even though Duke's not, my pick was North Carolina. I mean, I walked into the weekend, I was in the top 1% of the brackets. And now I'm off the planet, my God. I thought Duke was going to the Final Four. I thought Gonzaga was going to the Final Four. I didn't want Virginia to go to the Final Four. And I damn sure didn't pick Auburn because they were in North Carolina's region, and I thought North Carolina was going. What a disappointment. North Carolina just got their butts waxed. They got beat up. Auburn just took it to them. Now, I would tell you this. Auburn's kind of nice. And I'm a fan of Bruce Pearl. But Auburn is kind of nice. I just got to tell y'all. It's kind of nice. It really, really is. This kid, Jared Harper, man, let me tell y'all. Jared Harper, cat quick. Not the greatest perimeter shooter in the world. Only shot one of 6 from three-point range. That's true. But I would tell you, when you look at Jared Harper, I got to admit to you, this kid is special. He showed up and balled out. I got a lot of respect for him. He balled out. But this kid, you know who I'm a fan of? I'm talking about for purposes of the NCAA tournament, when we're looking at them and we're saying, yo, what's going to happen here? I got to tell you. This kid, Bryce Brown, shot maker. He's one of those dudes where you could just give him the ball and say, here, take me there. He's one of those dudes that you can say, clear it out. I got this. He's one of those dudes. I like Bryce Brown. And the combination of Bryce Brown and Jared Harper makes these guys very, very, very dangerous. Auburn could win a national title. Auburn could win the national title. Now, I would say this, however. Don't get too caught up in that because, again, they went up against Kentucky. It's a rare moment. First of all, P.J. Williams is a man. Can I say that? P.J. Washington, I'm sorry. He's a man. He is a man. That brother came over the bench. He balled, played 37 minutes, had 28 points, 10 to 18 shots. I mean, 28 and 13. That's what he finished with. P.J. Washington is a man. That brother was special. I was disappointed in Reed Travis. I really was. He couldn't stop anybody when it really, really counted. You know, it was like they were attacking him at every turn. And I'll tell you what I'm also interested in. Listen, Keldon Johnson, decent game, 14 points. I expected more from him. I really did. But you know who I was really disappointed with? John Calipari. And I'm going to tell you why. Had nothing to do with the game itself. Because not like the man didn't know what he was doing as a coach. It's that the personnel you had couldn't get it done. They couldn't make shots. You didn't have pure, unadulterated shooters out there. I can't believe I saw a Kentucky squad with such a suspect backcourt. I really couldn't believe it. And then I got to thinking, back in the day. Like John Wall was an All-American out of the, Washington Wizards, played at Kentucky. John Wall was a stud at Kentucky, but didn't really have that jump shot. And it cost them in the NCAA tournament, Final Four, if I remember correctly. Derrick Rose was sensational at Memphis, and he was something special to behold, no question about that, but wasn't really a shooter. Plus, fatigue is why Kansas beat Memphis for that national championship, because they were spent come overtime after Mario Chalmers hit that three to send the game into overtime. That was spectacular. Here's the thing. When you look at John Calipari and you think about the sensational guards that he's been able to recruit, how many of them have been straight up bona fide shooters? They can play, they can handle, they can get to the rack, they got heart, they ain't scared of anything, they can defend. All of those things are true. But where's the straight up bona fide shooter from the guards? I mean, when you talked about Derrick Rose at Memphis, you had Chris Douglas Roberts there, okay? Because he could shoot. There's no question about that. I'm thinking back to the days of John Calipari at UMass when you had Michael Williams, who could shoot. And Lou Rowe was a man amongst boys in the post. Plus, they had Marcus Camby. It's back before some of you young whippersnappers' time. This is in the mid-'90s. That's how far back John Calipari goes. But when you look at some of the guards that he has recruited, evidently it's a struggle to find shooters. Higgins was no threat from the outside. They were damn near daring him to shoot. I mean, he only hit 1 of 4 from three-point range, but I'm just saying they were laying off him. And I'm surprised that Calipari couldn't get those guys. Couldn't find somebody that could really, really shoot the rock. But that's just me. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. We'll get to your calls on the NCAA tournament. You got Auburn, Virginia, Michigan State, and Texas Tech in the Final Four. Who's your biggest surprise? What do you think is going to happen now? And what do you think about that Zion Williamson and Duke? My God, he is something special. All that and more coming up. We'll get into a little baseball and NFL talk and NBA talk as the show progresses today. So stick around. Don't touch that dial. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. By the way, when you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes, do you? You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. Ladies and gentlemen, they didn't throw any bottles at him. They didn't physically harm him. They wasn't like some punk in Europe that snuck up behind a soccer player and tried to headline him. Or clothesline him, rather. They didn't do that. They just booed. That's perfectly their right. Philadelphia is no joke. Understand that Philadelphia does not play. 0 for 3, a walk, 2 strikeouts. Philadelphia does not play. You got a 13-year, $330 million deal. What you going to do with it? Got them loud sneakers on. They ain't going to cut it. I like Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper can ball. I've got faith in Bryce Harper, but make no mistake about it. You talking about living someplace for the duration of your career, being comfortable with you and your family? Let me give y'all a little tidbit of information. Philadelphia ain't Southern California. Philadelphia in a lot of places. See, you can stink up a few places and then go into the burbs in your merry way and live your life. Nobody gonna bother you. That ain't Philadelphia. Philadelphia, blue-collar city, y'all. I'm talking about Philadelphia and all its surrounding areas. Parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, all those surrounding parts. You don't get to show up in the city of brotherly love, stick up the joint, and life gonna be comfortable for you and your family. That's not how Philadelphia rolls. Philadelphia is a different animal. You sign for $330 million. And you sticking up the joint, Philadelphia gonna have a problem with you. Make no mistake about it. That's how they roll. That's who they are. And I don't have a problem with it. They don't let you hear about it. I don't have a problem with them booing Bryce Harper on opening day because what they're doing is disseminating a message, not just to him, but for the world to recognize. You don't get to be comfortable here.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
New beat. I kind of like that. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and your car insurance. Make sure you listen. ESPN Radio, Progressive Insurance, today. 888-SAY-ESPN, it's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let's get right to it. Let's go to Micah. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Micah?
How are you?
I'm all right.
Hey,
go
Stephen,
ahead.
how are you? I hope you had a good weekend.
I did.
I respect you as an NBA and basketball analyst, but you can agree with me, hopefully, that Duke, the entire postseason, with the exception of North Dakota, didn't come with that intensity, didn't come with that drive to win.
I think you're wrong. I don't think that was their issue. I think what happened is that they were the Goliath and everyone was trying to knock them off. It's one thing for them to be Duke and Krzyzewski. It's another thing entirely when everybody's gunning for you because you're practically all we've talked about all year long because everybody's been raving about the greatness of Zion Williamson. They were such a huge target that other people brought their A games going up against Duke, and I think that was a factor.
Yeah, like with Taco Falls with UCF, and then also this is what Tom Izzo was preaching when he was, all up in arms with Henry two rounds ago. And imagine if Langford was healthy. We would not know what would happen, how bad the score would have been. When it's overtime or even bigger, score.
Well, listen, I think what happens is that ultimately, listen, in basketball, particularly in individual sport like that can be from time to time, I think what you find is a situation where you have some individuals. I mean, we find out what you're made of because when you step on the court with somebody, that matters. I remember I was just being interviewed for a 30 for 30 documentary on Felipe Lopez. And I was reminded as to how Felipe Lopez was the phenom. When he was coming out of New York City High School. And then he went up against Allen Iverson because Allen Iverson showed up to the Garden, the first meeting against Felipe Lopez, and everybody couldn't wait to see it. And Allen Iverson dropped 39. Or to a lesser degree, De'Aaron Fox last year, a couple of years ago in the NCAA tournament, he drops 39 on Lonzo Ball. Why? Because everybody was talking about Lonzo Ball. Sometimes that hype brings out the best in the opposition too. And we find out what people are made of. That's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. And I think that was what you saw yesterday to some degree. Thanks for the call. Mike, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen, this is Mike out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
I'm an old Boston Celtic fan since I was a kid. And Bill Russell's my hero. But I got a question for you. I want to know who you think would be comparable to Zion Williamson when they came out of college or left high school and went to the NBA. The only individual that comes to my mind is Moses Malone. And I was wondering your thoughts on the
bad comparison. Bad comparison because Moses Malone was a man in the paint that was 5 feet and in. That's what Moses Malone brought to you. He was a rebounding demon. He was unstoppable in the post. He was a man amongst boys in that regard. That is true. But Zion Williamson, his ability to step away from the basket, to hit three-pointers, to put the ball on the floor in the open court, to pass the basketball the way that he passes the basketball. I think the only person comparable to him is LeBron. coming out of high school.
Right.
Coming out of high school, because LeBron could do all of those things. And LeBron was a physical freak of nature because LeBron was about 250 pounds.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, like I said, I'm 64, and Zion Williamson is potentially the best I've ever seen to come out to be that young going to the NBA.
Well, we'll find out, because on the NBA level, listen, you think about it this way: Michael Jordan is the best to have ever played basketball. He averaged 30 on several occasions and finished his career averaging 30 a game. LeBron James is a career 27-point per game scorer. So Zion can do some things, but that's what, the numbers are not going to be greater than those. It's not like he's going to average over 30 a game religiously for his career. And even if he did, okay, that would be in line with other people. What he can bring to the table is the fact that at 280 pounds in a manner in which he can punish you while doing what he does. That's where he stands out above the crowd. LeBron James and to Zion to more of a degree, because he doesn't mind playing with his back to basket and going inside at you, whereas LeBron is more of a perimeter player. What they can do to you physically is what really, really stands out above the crowd. They're so imposing physically, and the contact that they create and the way they're able to punish you while you're trying to punish them is what makes them stand out above the crowd. It's not what the numbers, it's not just the numbers that they can produce. It's how they can hurt you physically while doing it.
Right. Well,
Right?
I know Moses could punish you too.
Yeah, but that was in a low post. Now, you ain't never in your career see Moses Malone dribble the ball 94 feet. That never happened. Come on now. All right. Take care, man. Thank you so much. Let's go to RJ. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Yeah, how's it going?
I'm all right. Go ahead, man.
So, I'm watching the game yesterday, and I see Zion get the ball a few times, or at least they tried to get it into the post to him. I don't think a lot of people are talking about how Xavier Tillman was able to deflect a couple passes down to Zion.
He was.
I was wondering how you think that might translate to bigger players on the next level.
I mentioned it earlier. Tillman played good defense on them, considering the circumstances. On the NBA level, listen, I think it's a matter of Zion acclimating himself. Are people going to be tougher competition for him? Sure. But that's in terms of him, in his post game. But let's keep in mind, it don't matter what we say. You don't teach 280 pounds.
Yep.
280 pounds. Now, I don't care who you are. You don't want to deal with that. There's a lot of cats in the NBA. They're men. They're strong. You don't want to deal with 280 pounds, bro. You don't want to deal with that.
And if you put a post move with 280 pounds as well, that's going to be something serious.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying the fact that he's in full. Look at what Zion does. First of all, his second jump is extraordinary because he gets off his feet really, really quickly. But the biggest thing about him is that he's a master at leaning into you and making you feel those broad shoulders and forearms of his when he goes up for a shot. You got to look at Taco Fall. This guy's 7'6", and Zion went right at him. Couldn't dunk on him, but he went right at him and created that contact because he elevates so high. And you combine that with his strength and his girth and mass. That's going to be a problem because most dudes in the NBA ain't like that. And remember, he's about 18, 19 years old, bro. He hasn't really filled out yet. There's still some growing for him to do. Yeah, so he's only going to get stronger. And that's what people are ignoring. And it ain't just upper body. You see those tree trunks and legs he got on him? Somebody better watch out. Appreciate the call. Michael, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, good afternoon, Stephen A. I was just going to talk to you about the Big Blue Devils in the NCAA tournament. The way ESPN and all the national media, if Coach K, which I've been a big Duke fan since the 1970s, even before Coach K came, if they didn't win at all, everybody's going to say it was a failure. I truly believe that, give Coach Izzo and his teams a round of applause. But my only question is in that, I don't know if it was something Coach K didn't call or anything there. Man, that's got 5 national championships, 3 gold medals, how do you have this Superman Zion, the last 3 possessions, go down there and not even look to pass the ball?
Stop right there. One time Zion gave the ball up. He did have the ball, and he gave it to R.J. Barrett, and R.J. Barrett missed a 3. Another time he gave it up, and R.J. Barrett got to the free throw line and missed one and made one by accident. So that's not true. That's number one. Number two, yes, I will call this season a failure. If it were most other teams, no. But Duke, yes. You're the Duke Blue Devils. You have the great Mike Krzyzewski as your coach. And you have a recruiting class that rendered even the great John Calipari damn near irrelevant when it came to recruiting, because you got a bunch of one-and-done guys. You had Zion, you had R.J. Barrett, you had Trey Jones, you had Cam Reddish, and you didn't even make the Final Four. I understand they had a successful season. They won their share of games. I get all of that. I understand that they won the ACC tournament. But that's not what we look to Duke for. We look to Duke for a national title, or at least a berth into the Final Four. And the fact that Zion is not playing the last weekend of the season at all is a problem. It ain't his fault because he showed up. So where I blame Coach K is I'm looking at Cam Reddish. And I'm saying, how was this guy so inconsistent all year long? I saw no improvement from Cam Reddish from the time this season began to the day it ended. None. And that's where I have to look at the coaching, as much as I love and respect Coach K.
You know, and the way is these kids nowadays have to wait, and the recruiting process that goes is you're kind of, is this kid where he was supposedly at the beginning of the year going to be a one and done? And now I truly believe, and I think, as you said earlier, I think he needs to stay at least one more year.
He needs to stay.
Of Coach K.
He needs to stay.
And maybe he can improve his stock.
Right.
Even
I got to run. Listen, Jay Williams came on the show, and Jay Williams, former All-American and national champion at Duke, said that Cam Reddish might find himself in the G League if he came out this year. Because his lack of a motor, his inconsistent play, they might draft him but send him down to the G League. You got men in there trying to pay mortgages and feed families. They ain't tolerating his nonsense. Cam Reddish was an incredible disappointment. I'm just going to say it like it is. Because I like his skill and I like his potential. But my goodness, did he let me down. I expected a hell of a lot more from him. I really, really did. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back with your calls and more to close out the hour before my man Michael K comes on to start off hour number 2. By the way, need seats to a game? Download the Vivid Seats app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid seat. And streaming live.
A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests of the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, coming to you live from above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. Also, get triple action protection for optimal engine performance with Shell V-Power Nitro plus premium gasoline. Blue, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, what up, Stephen A? What up, Stephen A?
Real quick, man.
I'm a little bit disappointed with my boy Cam. I thought he could have been more of a beast this year, actually, because, you know, with the motor that Zion has, half the motor that RJ has, I thought, you know, Cam would have came through and been more of a contributor to Duke going to the championship.
I agree. I don't disagree with that. You're absolutely right. You know, being that third wheel, listen, we rave about Kevin Love and the Chris Bosh for a reason. Because even though they weren't the primary or the number 2 option on those LeBron James teams in Cleveland or Miami, respectively, or in Bosh's case, LeBron with D-Wade, the fact is they did their jobs as that third wheel. They showed up, they averaged what they need to average at a good percentage, and they made big plays when it counted. Cam Reddish disappeared.
Disappeared. Magic show.
Yeah, disappeared. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I'm going to get back to some NBA action, some NFL talk as well with all of this noise about the Cleveland Browns. But I'm also going to talk a little baseball. I got Michael Kay coming on next. The Yankees actually lost a damn series to the Baltimore Orioles. You got to be kidding me. I need an explanation.
From coast to coast, the Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
Two of the Stephen A. Smith Show, here with you over the national airwaves of ESPN Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up is always 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. That's Credit Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Get knowing. On the line with us right now, as promised, to start off hour number 2, is a baseball analyst extraordinaire. He does his own afternoon drive show right here on 98.7 FM, ESPN radio station in New York City. Plus, he calls Yankee games for the Yes Networks. He is the great one himself, my buddy, the one and only Michael Kay, is on the line with yours truly. What's up, Michael? How are you, man?
Good, Stephen. How you doing?
I'm not good, Michael. And I'm about to be alarmed that I'm very, very surprised that you're good. I don't want to overreact, damn it. But I mean, losing the season, the opening series, rather, to the Baltimore Orioles. The Baltimore Orioles. I did not expect that from the New York Yankees, Michael Kay. No reason to be alarmed. There's 162 games. I know, but still, I don't like it. What happened this week? What happened this week with the Yankees against the Orioles?
Well, as the former Yankee manager was likely to say, it's not what you want. I know it's early, but it's really a bad look to lose 2 out of 3 to the Orioles. That's not taking anything away from the Orioles. They'd be the first one to tell you that they're certainly reimagining their team. Mm-hmm. And if you look at last year, Stephen A., the 4 last place teams that the Yankees played, I think they were 25 and 11, which is not bad. Mm-hmm. But the Red Sox were 30-4. And again, I'm rounding that off. And there was a 9-game difference. Mm-hmm. So just like that, the Red Sox beat the Yankees by 8 games. You've got to destroy these teams, and you play them. And the Yankees are playing the Tigers tonight, the first game of a 3-game set. So what happened? I think what happened is that when they fall behind, they start to think too big, and they're trying to hit home runs. And they're pulling off of everything, and they get away from all the situational hitting that they were trumpeting in spring training. And there was one guy really doing that for the Yankees, and that was DJ LeMahieu, who really showed over 2 games what a good player he is. But you've got guys striking out because they're looking to hit home runs, and that was a problem last year in the postseason, and it's a problem in the first 2 losses of this year.
I remember seeing something about Aaron Judge calling out his teammates. Exactly what did he say? Because clearly they didn't respond because they went out and lost the next game. But what did he say to them, and what problem did Aaron Judge have with his Yankee teammates?
Well, he just said, he said to me last week on our show that, when they win the first 2 games of a series this year, they can't take it for granted, okay, we won the series. They've got to try really, really hard to sweep, put the foot on the neck. And after the first loss on Saturday, I was shocked when he said our backs are against the wall. We have to win the next game. You don't want to lose a series to the Orioles. So he said it, and, he got a big hit yesterday, but he also struck out 3 times. So, he did his part in getting the 2-run single, but for the most part, the Yankees as an offense stalled. They left 14 runners on base. They didn't hit with runners in scoring position over the 2 losses, and I think it's going to change. Again, it looks weird because the Orioles are such a bad team, and that's the first series of the year, and you don't want to overreact, but when the star player on the team said your backs are against the wall, and then the team doesn't win a game, it's not a good look.
We're talking to Michael Kay right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Before I jump off the Yankees for a quick second, I wanted to read something that I read on MLB.com this morning. And I wrote the quote down, Michael Kay, and I wanted to know your reaction to it as somebody who calls Yankees games and has done so exceptionally for the last several years. Here's what it said on MLB. It said, this describing the Yankees, the age of the cute, plucky, lovable young Yankees is over. When Aaron Judge was leading the upstart Yankees kids into the AL Championship Series 2 years ago, even the most veteran Yankee haters couldn't deny the team's charm. But now, as the Yankees come to the end of a decade in which they haven't reached the World Series once, the first time in 100 years that has happened, everyone is on notice. Your response to that, is that right on point? Is that about accurate?
Well, I don't know if they're not cute and plucky anymore, but I will tell you this. In 2017, it was all new. You know, they weren't expected to do anything. I mean, the time of arrival for this team, when they started to reboot it, was 2019, which is now. So what they did in 2017, that was all gravy. People expected things out of them last year, and they won 100 games, but they lost in 4 games to the Red Sox. This year, I agree. There's no trophies for participation. They have to win a World Series. They're built to win a World Series. There are very few holes on the team. So, I don't think that people are going to give them a break if they fall short.
Talking to Michael Kay right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, Yankees play Giancarlo Stanton on the 10-day injured list with a left bicep strain today before their series opener against the Detroit Tigers. And speaking about the Detroit Tigers, we've got Miguel Cabrera, and everybody's going over because he went 0 for 6 on Sunday. He's clearly started off. He's only had 2 singles in a 3-game stretch. Doesn't look to be himself right now. The Yankees are set to go up against the Tigers. What are your expectations for the Detroit Tigers this year, first of all?
Well, Pacoda, which does the projections for what they think the teams are going to do, Stephen,
okay,
they have the Orioles and the Tigers as winning the fewest games in the Major League. So not much is expected of them. Mm-hmm. Zimmerman pitched well his first time out, and he had not pitched well last year, so that gives them a little bit of a boost over what was expected. But this is a young team. They're reimagining themselves as well. And when you look at the Yankee schedule, Stephen, the first 9 games, 6 against the Orioles, 3 against the Tigers, that's where you're supposed to get fat. But they got a lot of injuries right now, the Yanks. So Paul O'Neill said this on the broadcast yesterday. The Orioles don't yet know that they're bad. They haven't been convinced of it. So they're still young. They're new to the major leagues, a lot of them. You don't even know their names. I'm sure the Tigers feel the same way. Nobody's told them that they're terrible. So they're going to go out and play with really nothing to lose. The Yankees have something to lose every time they step on the field. So although the schedule on paper looks easy, nothing's easy in baseball because literally the 1962 Mets could win a one game out of 4 or 1 game out of 3 against the 1998 Yankees. That's just the way this sport is. You can't out-physical somebody. Like in basketball, if you have the best players, usually going to win. In football, if you have the best players, you can out-physical the other team. Baseball, you can have the best players, and the other pitcher could have a great day, and you're going to lose. So it's hard to just chalk up and say, well, the Tigers are not going to be good this year, so the Yankees should sweep. Yeah, they should sweep when you look at it on paper, but the game is played on grass.
Mike, it's interesting because I won't deny. I take hitting for granted during the regular season. During the regular season, I'm thinking if you can hit, you're going to win. But I expect great pitching to usurp all things come postseason time. So when I look at the Yankees and I have expectations for them this year, I look at Sale, who struggled miserably in his opener, but I'm just thinking about last year. We know what the Red Sox had. Okay, I look at the Yankees, Severino, even though I really consider him really, really good. Tanaka, even though I consider him really, really good. J.A. Happ, I like him. Exactly. You acquired Paxton. I'm looking at the New York Yankees, and I still have questions about what their rotation is going to be. I know their bullpen is stout. Please don't get me wrong. I understand that. But I'm talking about in terms of their rotation, whereas it might be a priority in some other people's eyes. To me, it is. I have questions about them. What kind of questions do you have about the Yankees' rotation for this upcoming season?
Well, I mean, you worry about the health of Severino. That's a huge blow. I disagree with you slightly. I think Severino is a legitimate ace the way he pitched in the first half. That's how good he is. But he's got to return to that, and he's not going to pitch until May. That's a big blow. What does CeCe have left? But the other 3 guys, I'd go to war with them. James Paxton, to me, is going to be the most underrated acquisition that any team had. People just look at him because the Yankees did it early. Not a big name. Played his whole career in Seattle. This guy throws 97, 98. I thought he pitched very well on Saturday. And Jay Happ had a rare bad game. He didn't even lose with the Yankees last year. When he came over from the Blue Jays, he was 7-0. And, 3.5-hour rain delay, you don't make excuses, but he didn't pitch well in the first inning. And the Yankees never got the lead. But I think the top three pitchers, Tanaka in 2017 showed that he could pitch in the postseason. He's a money guy. The other two guys I think are really good pitchers. A lot of it depends on Severino, Steven. That's what I worry about. If Severino could get back to the way I've seen him pitch, especially in the first half of last year, Yankee pitching matches up with most teams.
Michael, let me go to some of the big storylines before I let you get on out of here. Let me go to some of the big storylines that have taken place in Major League Baseball. I haven't had an opportunity to talk to you about in the last several weeks. We've got Bryce Harper with 13 years, $330 million. You got Mike Trout with 12 years, $426 million. It was nice to see Bryce Harper. He's hit a home run in the last couple of games. So the Philadelphia Phillies undefeated 3-0 on the season. What did you think about the contract Bryce signed? What did you think about the contract Mike Trout got?
I'll tell you what, I thought the Phillies did a good job on the contract with Bryce Harper. I mean, I think the average annual value is about $25 million.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. I thought he was definitely going to be over a $30 million guy. Yeah, they went to 13 years, but I think that the way they look at it is if they get 10 good years out of him, the last 3 years, if you look at the way the contract's structured, that money's not going to mean that much in 2029. So I think they did a good job, and in that ballpark, I think he's going to rake. As for Trout, I'm shocked, Steven, shocked that the Angels got him for that price. I think that if Mike Trout hit the free agent market, he would have commanded over $42 million a year. That's how good he is. So for them to get him at the money they got him, I thought it was extraordinary. And I think that was the only move. Artie Moreno, the owner of the Angels, could not have lost Mike Trout on his watch. He just couldn't do it. I mean, this is one of the, not just the best players in baseball, Steven. He's one of the best baseball players who ever lived. And if he's your guy, you can't let him go. That's why I'm surprised that Billy Epler and Artie Moreno were able to get him at what I thought was a very reasonable rate.
What about people that look at the sport of baseball and they talk about really ingratiating yourself with that younger audience on the come up, making sure, that your audience gets a bit younger? The average age of a baseball fan is anywhere, I think it's like over 50 years of age. One report said 47, but I thought that was more NFL than NBA was 44. I think baseball was over 50. They obviously want to ingratiate themselves with a younger audience. And you look at it from that perspective, you say Mike Trout being in Anaheim as opposed to in LA or New York, it would have been better for the sport had he been to one of those markets. What do you say, even though the Los Angeles Angels still in Anaheim, not in Los Angeles, California? But what do you say to folks that make that argument it would have been better for the sport if he were in a better market like that?
Probably would have been better for the sport if he was on an East Coast team, a big market East Coast team. The Yankees, the Mets, the Boston Red Sox, the Phillies, because most of the games would be seen by most of the country. Even if you're on the Dodgers, your games are starting at 10 o'clock at night, 10:30 at night on the East Coast. Most people sleeping. And also the fact that Mike Trout is a pure baseball player. He doesn't do commercials. He doesn't go hawk products. He's not really on social media. So he's not selling himself. I mean, the way he thinks about it, the way his people think about it, he plays the game. That's what he gets paid for, and I don't blame him. But he's not selling himself as a product. He's not selling himself as a brand. And we see how successful the guys in the NBA are doing that. They are not just basketball players, but they've created brands for themselves. And I think that really has a spillover effect to the sport. Mike Trout goes out and plays baseball at 10:30 every single night in the East Coast, and we don't see him. We just look at the box score or watch the highlights on SportsCenter, and that's what we know about him. We don't know much else. So I'm not sure if he would be any different if he was in Philly or New York, but I think more of the country would see more of him.
Well, definitely, and not only that, I didn't even mention Manny Machado, who signed for $300 million with the San Diego Padres. But with that being said, do you believe all of this puts even more pressure on Bryce Harper to produce because he is on the East Coast in Philadelphia playing at $330 million with a $330 million contract?
I just think playing in Philadelphia is going to put pressure on them. I mean, they do not suffer slumps very well. I mean, you're very familiar with the area. They're tough. They're a tough, demanding fan base, and I think he's a blue-collar sort of player with a little flair. I think he landed in the right spot, and I really, if this guy stays healthy, Steven, I don't know how he won't be successful because he's a good baseball player, a very good baseball player, and that ballpark is conducive to everything that he does. So I think the fan base will energize him even more than DC did, and I think he's going to play very well. So in terms of pressure, I think he puts pressure on himself because he's kind of Reggie Jackson once told me that he talked to Aaron Judge this year and said to Aaron Judge, your pressure is playing against Mantle and DiMaggio. So you're playing against the past greats of the Yankees. And Bryce Harper's playing against the expectations of Philadelphia fans, and Philadelphia has now become a title town. All of their teams are good. So I think he's got to keep his end of the bargain. I think he will.
Michael Kay, always appreciate your time, man. I apologize if I ran out of time to ask you about the New York Mets. I just don't feel like talking about them right now. They're 2-1. They're 2-1. I'll let Don Juan LaGreca talk about them. I'll watch them, and I'm glad they signed DeGrom. How about that? I said something nice about the Mets, Michael Kay. I'm glad they signed DeGrom.
And and Don and I didn't understand why they did. With a year left before they had to, but we've gotten into a lot of arguments with fans on our show about that. But I heard what you had to say, but I just think that sometimes the Mets play to their fan base and the media that said, oh, you have to sign him. No, you don't have to sign him until next year.
Let's tell the truth. You'd rather have DeGrom on the Yankees, wouldn't you?
I think DeGrom's one of the best pitchers in baseball. So
how about that?
I'd want him on my team. Sure.
How about that? He's a stud. Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much, Michael Kay. Take it easy. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was the great Michael Kay. Afternoon Drive host, 98.7 FM ESPN Radio in New York City. And the voice of the New York Yankees for the Yes Network right here, bestowing us with his baseball knowledge as only he can. Always appreciate that. Let's get back to the phones at 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's go to it. Let's go to Hayden. You're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hi, Stephen A. I got a question for you, going back to Zion and the comparisons to Jordan and LeBron. I grew up watching Magic play, and it seems like the world's forgot about Magic Johnson. I mean, stop.
We're talking about Zion Williamson being a physical freak of nature. 280 pounds with a 45-plus inch vertical leap. And the person that you're bringing up is Earvin Magic Johnson, the ultimate champion, a winner, arguably the greatest point guard in NBA history, that had a considerable height advantage over his defenders so he could look over and throw passes over them, but wasn't even in the same stratosphere athletically as the LeBrons and the Zions of the world. And that is the name you come up with, sir?
I think he might be one of the greatest ever, that's all.
One of the greatest what?
True point guard, yes.
Hold on. Is Zion a point guard?
What is his career?
Is Zion a point guard?
No, he's not. Well,
Thank you. No. He's not a point guard. That's an ignorant question. And it draws no comparison. Zero. Magic Johnson has nothing to do with a conversation involving the likes of Zion Williamson or LeBron James. None. Do you think you're going to see Zion playing the point?
No.
Have a nice day. At least you gave one bright answer. Let's go to Joe. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Joe?
What's up?
Speak up, man.
I called in before the NFL season started, and I asked you who the two worst NFL teams were before the season started. I wanted to congratulate you on being spot on. You said the Raiders and the Bills.
Go ahead.
You said Gruden was going to choke, and you were right. So good call on that one. Second, I asked you if my season tickets to the Spurs were going to come in clutch if they were still going to make the playoffs, and you were accurate on that, even when everybody was saying the Spurs weren't going to make it. But my question today is, who are the two overrated NBA playoff teams?
Overrated NBA playoff teams?
Yep.
Okay, let me think about that, because I haven't been paying attention to anybody in the East other than the top four. Everybody else has been irrelevant to me. I mean, Miami and Charlotte and people like that are battling for, the eighth playoff spot. Orlando's in the. I'm not thinking about those guys. They're not overrated because we haven't rated them. So I think about the Western Conference. Oklahoma City could be one. But when you talk about overrated, some people might say Denver because of how successful their season is, but what you're expecting from them come postseason. That it might be Denver, but I honestly don't know. Because everybody else, listen, Portland, we can't say overrated. They just got swept by New Orleans in the postseason last year, to Anthony Davis and those boys, and Drew Holiday. Okay? We look at the Clippers. Well, we can't say they're overrated because they've overachieved. just to be in the playoff picture, about to win 50 games in the regular season. Doc Rivers, it's a legitimate argument. Doc Rivers could be your coach of the year. As great as Budenholzer has been, he does have the Greek freak. Who the hell does Doc Rivers have? Who does Doc Rivers have? So we can look at that. Utah, nice team, right where they should be, around the 4th or 5th slot. So I would say to you, the two teams that come to mind, and Kawhi Leonard's no longer with San Antonio. DeMar DeRozan is there, so they're right about where they're supposed to be. So I would tell you the two teams, based on your question, would be Denver and OKC.
Okay, do you have a sleeper? And anybody is considered a sleeper if you don't say the Warriors. So anybody.
No.
Who's your sleeper?
Well, anybody. Well, first of all, Houston's not a sleeper. You're awake for Houston. I would tell you right now, if Nurkic hadn't gone down, Portland might have been my sleeper. But right now, I would tell you this. If OKC gets the 7th seed and they don't have to play the Warriors in the first round, I would say to you, OKC might be the sleeper.
I was hoping you might say the Celtics.
No, they're not a sleeper to me. I picked the Celtics to come out of the East. You asked the word sleeper. Sleeper is somebody that'll surprise you, that'll come out of nowhere. No, Boston's supposed to be there. They're not a sleeper. So I wouldn't classify them as that. But that's just me. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Appreciate the call. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio and ESPN News. By the way, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's Home Quote Explorer gives you multiple quote options so you can pick what's right for you. See for yourself at Progressive.com. It is. Ladies and gentlemen, they didn't throw any bottles at him. They didn't physically harm him. They wasn't like some punk in Europe that snuck up behind a soccer player and tried to headline him. Or clothesline him, rather. They didn't do that. They just booed. That's perfect. Does not play. 0 for 3, a walk, 2 strikeouts. Philadelphia does not play. You got a 13-year, $330 million deal. What you going to do with it? Got them loud sneakers on. They ain't going to cut it. I like Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper can ball. I've got faith in Bryce Harper, but make no mistake about it. You talking about living someplace for the duration of your career, being comfortable with you and your family? Let me give y'all a little tidbit of information. Philadelphia ain't Southern California. Philadelphia in a lot of places. See, you can stink up a few places and then go into the burbs in your merry way and live your life. Nobody gonna bother you. That ain't Philadelphia. Philadelphia, blue-collar city, y'all. I'm talking about Philadelphia and all its surrounding areas. Parts of Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, all those surrounding parts. You don't get to show up in the city of brotherly love, stick up the joint, and life gonna be comfortable for you and your family. That's not how Philadelphia rolls. Philadelphia is a different animal. You sign for $330 million, and you sticking up the joint. Philadelphia gonna have a problem with you. Make no mistake about it. That's how they roll. That's who they are. And I don't have a problem with it. They don't let you hear about it. I don't have a problem with them booing Bryce Harper on opening day because what they're doing is disseminating a message, not just to him, but for the world to recognize. You don't get to be comfortable here.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Oh my goodness. Wait till I tell y'all this. This is funny. By the way, the Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. That's Credit Karma, Karma. Get knowing. Ladies and gentlemen, there's some guy, and I want to make sure I mention him because he calls the radio show all the time. His initials are BP, as in batting practice. BP. Well, he's called my producers. He's been dying and desperate to call me off there. Apparently, he's been calling for weeks religiously, wanting to get me on the phone. Now, listen, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think I'm that special, but evidently some of y'all do. And as a result, you know, a lot of people clamor for my time, and damn it, I don't have much time to give. So it ain't going to happen like that. All right? But I will tell you this. I almost regret not meeting the guy so I could laugh in his face. BP, wherever you are, I'm going to tell America what you're proposing. According to this guy, BP, he has a, quote, $1 billion idea. Billion, not million, $1 billion idea that he thinks that I could make happen. And he's like, it can't miss. It can't miss. Ladies and gentlemen, are y'all ready for this? Are y'all ready for this? Because, I mean, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. BP proposes that I get together with Floyd Money Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, okay? Floyd Mayweather, born in 1977. Floyd Mayweather, who's about, 42 years old? About 42, all right? BP proposes that Floyd Money Mayweather step back into the ring to fight the 63-year-old Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, I'm sorry to talk about some listeners sometimes, but it's very, very few. Most of y'all are highly intelligent, good people, whatever. But you got some people that are either idiots or something's just not right. There's something that's not there. There's just something that is not there. Floyd Money Mayweather would be $1 billion idea if he got into the ring and fought Sugar Ray Leonard. That might be one of the most ignorant ideas I've ever heard in my life. My biggest thing is this, John. Why the hell he calling me? How come he ain't call Max Kellerman? What are you bothering me for? I don't know. Max Kellerman was synonymous with boxing. Max, I don't even know what Max would have done with him. You know, Max with those Beetlejuice eyes. I mean, Max might have been dying. Max might have laughed so hard, Max might have fainted. That just might be one of the most ignorant ideas I've ever heard in my life. Sugar Ray Leonard, who hasn't fought in over a quarter century, gets back in the ring at age 63 years of age to fight Floyd Money Mayweather. That's what this guy BP, that was his $1 billion idea. And then y'all wonder why I can't be available to y'all. It's just that kind of nonsense. That might be one of the most ignorant ideas I've ever heard in my life. Good Lord. Terrence, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Stephen A., how's it going? Big fan. Also,
Thank you.
a Winston-Salem alum.
Thanks a lot, man. What's going on?
My question for you is, what would be a more quality fight between Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford, or Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder? I know Joshua Wilder would get more hype, but do you think it would be a better fight?
The more quality, better fight would be Errol Spence against Errol Spence Jr. against Terrence Crawford. I think with Wilder and Anthony Joshua, you're just waiting to see who gets knocked out. I think Crawford against Errol Spence Jr., you see a fight.
That's not a knockout.
No, I'm not saying it wouldn't be a knockout. Somebody might get knocked out, but what I'm trying to say to you, Wilder and Anthony Joshua, that's the only reason you're looking for it. In other words, don't you think Triple G versus Golovkin was a great fight?
Absolutely.
I'm saying, did anybody get knocked out?
Nope.
What I'm saying is Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. has the potential to be that kind of fight. Whereas you look at Wilder and Anthony Joshua, ain't no way in hell that's going the distance. They ain't going the distance. I can't see that happening. They ain't going to just somebody gonna fall. That's what I would tell you about that.
Who you think will get set up first?
I don't know. I don't have any clue. I don't have any clue about that. I hope they both happen this year. I'll tell you that much. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you. Let's go to Grayson. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, man?
What's going on, Stephen A? Big fan from Houston. Just want to ask, what do the Rockets have to do to make their playoff push against the Golden State Warriors?
Stay healthy. Stay healthy, and have somebody other than James Harden make noise offensively.
So it needs to be someone other than Harden. This whole regular season tactic of Harden taking over the game, that's not going to fly in the playoffs.
Well, I don't think it's going to fly from a one-dimensional perspective. I still think that Harden's going to have to drop 30+, but I don't think it's going to be he's going to have to do his. It just can't be one-dimensional. It has to be something where we're able to look at it and say, hey, wait a minute here. James Harden has to have help. A one-man army cannot beat the Golden State Warriors. It's not going to happen. Other guys got to step up. There's going to have to be a collective effort. You're going to have to play better defense. And Chris Paul's going to have to stay healthy. And you're going to have to get offensive production, whether it's from him or somebody else other than Harden. So those three things have to happen for the Houston Rockets to knock off the Golden State Warriors.
He's probably going to go to at least 6 or 7. And for one of these games can come down to the wire. Who does it got to be? It's got to be Chris Paul or James Harden with the ball. Because
you know what? You're annoying me. I just answered your question. How much of a better answer can you get? I said Chris Paul has to stay healthy. You have to get offensive production from someone other than Harden. I don't care who it is, whether it's Chris Paul, Eric Gordon, it's got to be one of the perimeter players. That I'll say to you. It's not about Kenneth Faried, Clint Capella, P.J. Tucker. You've got to get, whether it's Chris Paul or Eric Gordon, somebody's got to step up offensively. They got to play better defense, and they got to stay healthy. It has to happen for you to beat Golden State. It has to happen. How much more clearer of an answer can you get? I guess you know. Thanks for the call. Jewel, you're live with Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A. Smith. This is Jewel Kids from Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I just want to say...
Okay, I didn't need all your first name, last name, and where you're from. That's all right, but go ahead.
Hey, go Spark. I think Cassius Winston, that's our leader, bro. I think he's going to take us all the way. That's our guy.
Well, you know what I think? That's not a bad choice. That would be my selection. This kid Harper at Auburn ain't no joke, though, now. Let's not forget him.
Can I say one thing,
Go ahead.
Steven?
Go ahead.
I agree with you 100%. I've been watching that kid, but keep your eye on Cassius Winston for the rest of this series.
I don't have to keep my eyes on him. He's arrived. Hold on. He's arrived. Cassius Winston, we don't have to keep our eyes on him. He's arrived. That brother can play, and he's a leader. Cassius Winston's special. One turnover in 40 minutes, that's special. So let's understand. We already understand where he's at. We're talking about who's going to go up against him. That's what we're paying attention to, because he's the one to knock off now. Because you look at the other cats, and oh, by the way, my condolences to Carson Edwards for Purdue. What a performance. What a performance. He was sensational, but ultimately couldn't close. Bad pass down the left sideline when they had a last shot opportunity versus Virginia. Damn shame it even went to overtime, considering the ball was tapped out and the big boy that tapped it out ended up drilling the shot at the buzzer to send it into overtime. But what a game. And what a game at the NCAA tournament. It's really, really special. You look at the NCAA tournament, every game's coming down to the wire. It's special. Go ahead.
Hey, go green, go white. And I think you're right about BP. He's out of his mind. I don't know who this guy is, but he's crazy.
He's lost his way. He's lost his way. No question about it.
Great fan, Stephen A. Smith, great show.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's go to Malcolm. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Malcolm?
What's up, Stephen A.?
You live on the air, brother. Go ahead and speak.
Hey, you know what? I heard you talking about Money May and Sugar Ray fighting. I don't know who dude is, and I don't know what he's talking about. But my nephew, he was talking, my sister's son, he was talking crazy. I said, nephew, I'll take you to the backyard, man. Come on. We put the gloves on. My nephew was 17. I'm 49. We go in the backyard. I'm just going to box the nephew up. I'm not going to hurt him. I'm just going to let him know, I'm your uncle. I could not touch that little dude. I could not. He had hands.
So what's your point?
So my point is, why is this cat thinking that Money May and Sugar Ray could get in the ring together?
Because clearly there are some people in this world who need to be drug tested immediately. There are some people in this world that got issues.
The only thing I could do was wrap him up and hold him down and just put a little bit of weight on him and be like, nephew, I'm still your uncle. I could not touch that man. He could have been wearing 16-ounce gloves. I've been wearing 8-ounce gloves. I still would not have been able to touch him.
Yeah. I mean, listen, man. Listen, there's something to be said about being younger. You know, listen, when they talk about elders, right? You know what they attribute most to elders? Wisdom. Never energy. Never speed, agility, quickness. They say wisdom. Because physically you just ain't what you used to be.
How's going?
I got you. I appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate that call, but all that ain't necessary on my radio show. Got to get your own podcast or something to do that. All right? Not here. Appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Back with your calls to close out the show in a minute. This is Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, you know what never goes out of style? Surprising a friend or loved one will buy one, get one free multicolored rose bouquets for $29.99 from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Welcome back, Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, baseball is back. Tune in tonight as National League Rookie of the Year, Ronald Acuna Jr. And the Braves host the Chicago Cubs. Coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, and at 7 p.m. on ESPN. Back to the phones we go real quick before we get on out of here. By the way, the projected 9 wins for the Cleveland Browns this year. Freddie Kitchens had his press conference. Listen, they'll win 9 games this year. I believe that. That don't mean they're winning some damn Super Bowl. Everybody talking about how they should be the Super Bowl favorites. Just because they got Odell Beckham Jr. with Jarvis Landry and Kareem Hunt and Baker Mayfield. Y'all get caught up in that sauce if y'all want to. I'm here to tell you. I'm just not of that belief. That's just me. That is just me. 888-SAY-ESPN. Let's get back to it. Let's go to Mitch. Alive, Stephen A. What's up?
Hey, Stephen, love your show. I know you haven't really been talking about baseball. Just a question. What direction do you think Chris Bryant's going and how he is performing?
Oh. Say what?
Chris Bryant, what direction do you think he's going in?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention to him. What's your other question?
All right. Do you think LeBron will win one more title before he's done?
No, not unless the Lakers get him more talent. As it stands, no. But it would be lovely if the Lakers got the number 1 overall pick. Of course, I want the Knicks to get it. If not, I want the Lakers to get Zion Williamson. Zion with LeBron, that would be something special. Then who knows who will want to come and play in L.A. We'll see. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Ty in Texas. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. What's up, man? Talk to me.
Stephen A., what's up, man? I want to know, do you think Texas Tech defense is for real? And
yes, I do.
They have a
yes, I do.
National championship.
Yes, I do. I think their defense is very much for real. I think they get after it. Derek Culver can play too, by the way. Let's not forget him or Mooney, for example. I like Texas Tech a lot. They're 30-6 on the year. I can't ignore what I'm seeing from them. And they know how to shut it down, man. This is one of the elite defenses in all of basketball. They've got length. They've got some athleticism. They go after it. They'll play at an up-tempo pace. They only shot 39% for three-point range. Ain't bad. 9 of 23 threes they hit against Gonzaga. But I'm just of the mindset, does Texas Tech have a chance? You're damn right they do. Appreciate the call. Tim, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, go.
Hey, Stephen A. Something I want to say about the one and done versus some seasoned teams. I think this weekend kind of gave us a little purview into how hard it is to get a group of elite athletes to play an excellent game of basketball together versus a group of maybe 2-star or 3-star athletes that have played together for 3 and 4 seasons, and they know each other better. And I think that was the main problem between R.J. Barrett and Zion.
That might be the case, sir, but what sense is there in talking about that? We all know that there's opposition to the one and dones. You got some other people that feel guys should be able to come straight out of high school and go to the pros. The reality of the situation is that if you're a big-time basketball player, the years of you playing 3 or 4 years in college are over. That's the reality. Let's deal with that.
The reality, and I don't disagree at all, and that wasn't my point. My point was, is it a seasoned team versus a brand-new team? I'm going with the seasoned team to win.
I got you. I understand that. Can respect that point, no question. Rocky, real quick, you're live with Stephen A. You got 30 seconds.
Hey, Stephen A., really quick, as a Red Sox fan, I'm going to tell you the New York Yankees are going to be there. I don't like them, but I sure in the hell respect them. They'll be there at the end of the year. Also, the guest you had on your show, I'm sorry I didn't remember his
Michael
name.
Kay.
He has a valid point about, Michael Kay. He talked about most of the fans being over 40. Can you attribute that to the way the sports market has evolved to where players could switch teams so fast?
It's not, no. It's not just the way the sports market has evolved. It's that baseball has held on to tradition. It holds on to it for dear life. It hasn't really modified itself to current times, and it hasn't ingratiated itself well enough with the younger audience. That's the biggest problem it has. But baseball is still great. Talk to you on 22 hours. Until then, peace and love.
Hey, what's up? It's Will Kane. Coming up right after Stephen A. Smith. Join us on The Will Kane Show, live on ESPN Radio, Sirius XM Channel 80, and ESPN News.